Good morning. It is Thursday, July 16th. Welcome to the Sociality Squared weekly director's cut, where I share commentary on what we're doing and what we're creating at Sociality Squared, in addition to social media marketing news and trends. Today, I'm going to be talking about algorithms, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so stay tuned. Really appreciate you sharing your time with me, whether you're watching live or the recorded version. We're still in the middle of the first wave of the pandemic, and across the country, states are shutting back down again, and we've surpassed over 138,000 people who have died in the US. And one of our core principles at Sociality Squared is to never reduce anyone to a stat, whether that's in our social media analytics or when we're thinking about those who we have lost. These are loved ones. So my heart is with your heart, and my heart is especially with the Black community right now. Here at Sociality Squared, we don't want business to return to normal. We want to create a better standard, one founded in anti-racism and radical inclusion and equality. So, if you don't know who I am, I'm Helen Todd, the co-founder and CEO of Sociality Squared. We're a social media agency that understands the magic of people coming together around what they value and love. Clients partner with us to grow their companies, and as I said, we always remember behind every screen is a person. And then I'll leave after the video in the descriptions all of the ways that you can connect with us. Of course, like our page, and you'll get notifications when I go live every Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. And I'm Helen's Travels on Instagram and Twitter. Okay, so I'll be covering algorithms and social media news and some inspiration. So for the key topic, okay, algorithms. Was it yesterday? There was a Washington Post article that came out recently. I just pulled it up. July 14th, so 2 days ago, on how Google, prioritizes YouTube videos. Surprise, surprise. They're not really supposed to, but YouTube is the second largest search engine. Google owns them. Yeah, YouTube videos are prioritizing Google search results. It's just one little red flag of the favoritism of algorithms. But I want to talk to you today both about algorithms through the lens of marketing, and then also in the broader sense, kind of some issues. So the good thing about algorithms, there inherently is nothing wrong with algorithms. They're just a decision-making tool where you have different factors that you take into consideration to arrive at decisions. With the algorithms on our news feeds and search results, how they came about is, for those who remember, and some of them you still can switch to most recent, when you connect with so many people and so many brands that are posting, millions of pieces of content every day, it's like a waterfall of content that you're having to sort through. Those of you might remember Instagram before it switched over to the algorithm. When people weren't as following many, you could literally scroll through to the last post you saw and catch up to the most recent. But the purpose of them is, when you follow so many people and all those people create content, it's near impossible to see every single post. So algorithms come up because it helps sort through that for you. And all of the algorithms, they vary based on the company and platform. It's all based on signals that users give to the platforms, and the platforms interpret those as, this content is meaningful, so I'm going to show this person more content like this or from this brand or creator. And the stronger the signal, which typically is more effort on the user's part, whether that's spending more time on the posts and watching videos, all the way through, or writing more like commentary in the comments. So the stronger the signal, and usually that indicates more effort on the user who's consuming it, um, tells the platforms, okay, this user is highly engaged with this type of content. I'm going to show more of it to that person. So, from a marketing standpoint, you want to be optimizing content to get the most shelf life and distribution as possible. And of course, it's always create good content, but there's specific ways that you can think about it in order to optimize it. So some general tips, and I'll give you a few platform specific ones as well. The first one is use visual, like have a visual first approach to your feeds with images. This is whether they're strong images and link attachments or just images uploaded or moving images. Last week I talked about the importance of adding video to your social media content strategy. So if you missed that, go back and watch last week's video. But one thing that I mentioned, we're moving more and more mobile and our screens are getting smaller and smaller, and we're even on desktop, whether we're scrolling through or thumbing through, we're sorting individually through a lot of information, and images will really pop out to grab our attention and then pull us more in whatever that action that as marketers we want people to take, whether that's viewing the video, clicking through to visiting the website, or engaging with the post. So having that thumb stopping content that really captures viewers and pops in the feed is really important. And what I spoke to last week, utilizing video, it's such a rich way to convey a lot of information in such a short time period, and there's no excuse for anyone not to be using video for their social media marketing. But on the algorithm side, the platforms want more video and distribute video more and prioritize it more in the feeds. Another key thing is post in the culture of the platform. And this goes to, each platform has a different way users engage with it. If you just take the example of hashtags, you don't really use hashtags on Facebook. You can max out 30 hashtags on the Instagram feed. Twitter, LinkedIn, three. I think Twitter is like 2, 3, LinkedIn 3 to 5 hashtags. So if you use 30 hashtags on Facebook, that looks odd. It's not what users want, and they're not going to engage, and therefore you're not going to get the same distribution results in the feed. So posting in the culture of the platform and optimizing for the platform. Square images, unless they're designed a very specific way, get cropped in a funny way on Twitter, so they don't always look good. Whereas horizontal images look good on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. Whereas square images you can use on Facebook and LinkedIn, and or Facebook and Instagram. But if you design them right, they can look cropped, but that's a lot harder to do. So even as you're thinking visual first, you have to think of how to optimize the images per platform. And then fostering engagement. The more that people engage with your posts, the more signals that the platforms receive. And as I mentioned, the more involved that engagement is, the stronger the signal. So like the lightest form of engagement is just a view, which is very liberally used for analytics of people scrolling and seeing posts. If people stop, spend time, or click, that's another form of engagement. Reactions and comments and shares. Shares are also very important because it shows that someone likes the content enough to share it. So asking questions is a great way to foster engagement and get people to, even the longer the comment, the better. So asking questions is so important. Using polls is another great way. And one thing that we always say is, a lot of social media marketing is experimental and throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. So with whatever your community is, you've got to kind of find that magic um, formula that works. And then, one of the most important things when it comes to content to build not only trust but also engagement is to consistently show up and to build consistency into your posting schedule. And then also for more immediate content, algorithms not are not always the best on this front, because as everyone knows, sometimes you post and or even when you go to the feed, you'll see posts from 3 days ago that you missed. Sometimes, there's conflicting information, but sometimes Instagram will prioritize feed posts. But for immediate content that you want, that's like, hey, reminder, an hour from now, something's going to happen. The best way to make sure that people see it is, well, even boosting with ads takes a little approval time. But to build in time that that there's going to be approval process for the ads, but uh, boosting content or putting ads behind content that you want people to see is, especially in real time, is great. Using stories and Twitter are really good for more real time content because Twitter prioritizes more of the real time, and then stories is in chronological order. And then, of course, going live, using live video across the platforms is great for real time news. Um, and then the bad and the good, the bad, and the ugly is that it is a really competitive space, and the more brands and people that use these platforms, because brands are competing against people and friends and groups to reach their community and potential community. It's just a really competitive space. So the best way, I mean, like organic, everyone wants organic reach, and things to go viral organically. That's the dream. Some brands have really great organic content and engagement, which is fantastic. But one thing I highly recommend for your most important content that you want to ensure gets reach and eyeballs is to put ad dollars behind it. That way, it just ensures that all of the time and effort that you put behind it, or that the importance of that post reaches as many people as possible. So, those are, oh, I'll give you a couple tricks around specific platforms too, just primarily Facebook and Instagram. And I'll share a link that has some good tips for other platforms too. So Facebook, a couple tricks to get around the platforms. Um, Ads, that's the easy one. And you can spend just a little bit of money to have posts go such a long way. One ad that we just ran for one of our clients, I think this was 2 weeks ago. It was a promotion, and it was one of those perfect promotions where the incentive was really strong and resonated with the community. For this, it was a sweepstakes, or not a sweeps, yeah, a sweepstakes where people had to buy tickets, a raffle, sorry, raffle or sweepstakes, where people had to buy tickets to get this prize, or not buy tickets as another way to enter. But we only spent $75 towards the end of the promotion to get a last minute boost of people who to buy tickets. And we got 1 cent cost per click, and I think over 6,000 views, or 6,000 clicks. But anyway, it was 1 cent of cost per click, which that might be one of our all-time best ads. And we only spent $75 and got so much bang for our buck for that particular client. So ads really do work when you find, again, that magic formula that resonates with your community. Other ways with Facebook, using Facebook events and getting people to RSVP to them, because the events kind of do some of the reminder work for people and skips the feed by doing those notification dots of like, hey, your event's about to start. So that's a great way to kind of circumvent the news feed. And Facebook, they're rolling out the new redesign now and are moving more towards groups. They understand the importance of groups and are in some ways redesigning Facebook around groups. So having brands host groups is a great way. Or just it's hard in some respects for brands to engage with groups because they're kind of lock and key in a lot of cases. But if you have influencers that can promote your product within groups, that's a great way because groups prioritize the activity in the users' news feeds. And of course, outside of social media, brands should be growing their email lists and phone lists because while email has its own filters of spam and getting into your main inbox, you don't have to deal with the algorithm, and email still is a great way to drive conversions with open rates and whatever conversion you're looking to drive. And also, whenever possible, leverage personal pages when applicable. This is having, ambassador programs or your employee advocates, because Facebook prioritizes people over brands. So the more that you get people talking and sharing in their own feeds, the better. On Instagram, a few quick tips. One of the strongest posts right now are carousel posts, and carousel posts are the posts where you have to swipe through and see 3 to 10, even 2, but images, like album images. And why those are so strong is people have to spend more time on them, and that's a strong signal to Instagram that these posts perform well and that the users are engaged. Ask questions, get people to engage in the feed, and engagement is important across the board. And with Instagram, if you do want more immediate push of your posts in the feed, as soon as you post, getting quick engagement is great, and then making sure to engage with the people who comment and engage with your followers so that maybe they'll hop over and see your content too. And of course, you want to use relevant hashtags and to understand which hashtags drive engagement. At Sociality Squared, we're a Sprout Social agency partner. If you're interested in using Sprout Social, do reach out to me because we have a great package of our consulting and the ability to use Sprout. But one of the reports that I love in Sprout is that they actually highlight which hashtags on Instagram help drive the most engagement on your page. So understanding which hashtags are working for you, optimizing those, and then finding others that help drive engagement is important. And then, of course, for organic reach right now, stories is great, and you can use ads for stories too, but if you're not using Instagram stories, I highly recommend you do that. It's great for organic reach, and you probably want to be posting at least 1 a day, but 2 to 5 if you can. Even if it's just sharing your feed posts to stories. It's kind of like the cheater way to put more content in stories. Okay, so and then I'll share a link that has some other tips across platforms that had some other good tips, but these were the ones that I thought was most important and that I wanted to share with you. And in general, across the platforms, the principles are pretty much the same of the more engagement and signals that people show content, the more the platforms are going to, keep sharing content from those creators or brands back to them. So, and that's also really important. Why consistency? So, if you are consistently publishing and engaging, you're kind of starting to ride this wave. If you stop publishing, the wave kind of crashes and flattens out, and then you have to start over about this wave. So, once you get an engagement wave going, keep riding that wave as long as possible and keep the engagement going. We've had some clients in the past just want to go dark on social for 3 months in between campaigns or something. And that is not a best practice that I ever recommend, because it is an ongoing conversation where you have to keep stirring the pot and keeping people engaged. And especially when things are, if you have some content that does really well, ride that wave, put out other important content, maybe even put ads behind it to actually, that's a great best practice. If you have a piece of content that organically is doing really great, put some ads behind it and make that wave turn into a good tsunami. Okay. Oh, I'm spending so much time talking about my topics, I'm running out of time. So the on the ugly side, I wanted to mention this because um, where the broader issue of algorithms go wrong is that there is no transparency and accountability around them. And from the platform standpoint, it's their secret sauce and their competitive advantage, which is totally fine to have. But there is no third party oversight or independent watchdogs. So you have companies like Facebook, which has 2.6 billion monthly active users. And then on Google, you have roughly 1.7 billion people a day doing 7 billion searches. Um, and these two companies, and any of the companies really, are deciding, and these algorithms and their little knobs that they turn of what they downplay or prioritize, what shows up in our search results and our news feeds. And that is so much control and power in what's showing up in feeds of billions of people. And we know what we consume impacts what we think and what we do. And we know this, as I've said before, because we do spend so much money on ads because they sell products and impact behavior. And the fact that one of the arguments is that, oh, algorithms, are this black box that are too complicated for people to understand, just doesn't hold up. And right now, there's no accountability for how these platforms, and there's very few people, even within the companies, that understand the algorithms themselves. Um, uh, how they operate. So it's just too few companies and people that control these algorithms that impact billions of people around the world. So there's a need for algorithm transparency, literacy among users, and there's a lot of different solutions out there. I'm in favor of algorithm watchdogs, but there's certainly other important ones to be discussed. But I think it's something extremely important. I mean, there's a lot on the social front between misinformation and whatnot, but misinformation and algorithms go hand in hand because they optimize for sensationalism. Hate groups. One study that I read, and I think I shared in a past Facebook Live, is that a lot of recruitment for Facebook hate groups comes from Facebook's recommendation tool, which is an algorithm that's like, oh, if you engaged in this content or in this group, you might like this hate group. They're really problematic, and there's a lot to be fixed. And it should not solely rest on the platforms themselves to address these issues. They're bigger and much larger than the platforms. So as much as as a marketer, I think about algorithms and how to optimize content to get more shelf life and distribution. It's just as important to keep in mind the ugly side of algorithms, and there's much to be done on the platform side and regulatory side to make sure that um, they're living up to the promise of being helpful in terms of helping us sort through content, but that we understand why and that they're doing it with integrity. Um, okay, I'm getting close to the end, but I wanted to talk about a few other things. So we might go over my 30 minutes a little bit. In the news, Twitter got attacked yesterday. Was the biggest breach of global security breach that the platform has ever seen. Uh, Massive accounts were hacked for a Bitcoin scam, including Elon Musk, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Kanye West. So there is a Twitter feed from their support that's giving updates. Apparently, it looks like users or Twitter employees were specifically kind of leveraged in this attack. Leverage might be the wrong word, but weaknesses from employees for the attack. But it's given everything happening in the world, that it's an election year. Um, you know, I think one senator said that this is a breach of or a high concern of security and data privacy for all users. And if this can happen to some of the wealthiest and biggest names out there, that it's really problematic, and that uh, it drove people to action to spend. I think these hackers got $181,000 plus yesterday from this scam. So it can sow chaos and discord. So Twitter's working on it, but I think this is a red alert and red flag for all platforms. And from a user standpoint, or all platforms to beef up, their security for these types of things. From a user standpoint and from a marketer standpoint, I think this has a few implications. One, from a marketer standpoint, well, for both, I know that the two-step verification processes can be annoying, but beef those up across platforms. If a platform offers two-step notification or two-step authorizations, turn those on. Update your passwords if you haven't. Wherever you keep your passwords, make sure that those are safe. And from a user standpoint, everyone just has to be hyper vigilant about the content that we're reading, even from accounts that we follow. If it seems fishy, make sure, maybe we should start Googling or searching on Twitter for fishy scam information. But just question everything, double check the content from the sources, and everyone just has to be super hyper vigilant. A couple other quick things. Facebook is rolling out its new platform look. That means header images for brand pages have to be updated. Ours, if you look at ours, no longer is optimized, so we'll be fixing that this week. Instagram is testing out different ways to see stories, even more kind of Brady Bunch feature of all of the stories on one page. They're testing it, so it doesn't mean that it will roll out. If it does roll out, it means that people engage with it. It fosters engagement, because all rollouts that these platforms do, they have tested, and people engage with the content more. And two things I meant to say last week, but ran out of time or forgot, is Reddit actually has stepped up with their content policies and has banned a couple subreddit hate groups around Trump. So I very much applaud Reddit for doing this. They've done more than, what is it? More than 2,000 communities are being removed or have already been removed for violating Reddit's new content policies. And one of the beginning of the policies is just remember the human, which of course we very much support here at Sociality Squared. And they're stepping up on this, which is great, to make sure that hate speech is banned, that minorities and underrepresented voices aren't bullied on the platform. So two big ones that got banned is the subreddit group The Donald and Chapo Trap House. Um, and in the bigger scheme of things, each platform, and I've said this before, it's a very fractured way in how they're interpreting, the First Amendment and how they're applying it. It's right now the law states that platforms can create their terms of service however they want. They just have to equally apply their terms of service. But you're seeing different, there's not like a GDPR where a blanket way of how to approach this for each of the platforms. So we'll certainly, there'll be more news on this and we'll certainly be mentioning it here. Google Plus, RIP, is officially gone. This was reported on the 6th of this month, and has gone under a new, like on the mobile app, has a totally different name and rebrand. So I'll share the link to that. Not the biggest news, but poor Google Plus. Okay, we're a little bit over, but I wanted to mention two inspirations for today. Is Daryl Davis. His story is amazing, and I first heard about him, I don't know if it was 2017, but that's when the first podcast came out on Love and Radio, where he was interviewed by the guy who runs Love and Radio to share his story, and it is amazing. So he is a Black musician who friends KKK leaders and Klan leaders, and through that friendship has gotten them over time to give up their robes. And he has a collection of robes of all these Klansmen who have given up the Klan. And the podcast, there's two interviews. Both are really worth listening to. And then just a few days ago, another video, an article came out, and the video is just 9 minutes long and kind of shares his story. And it reported that over 200 people in white supremacist groups and the Ku Klux Klan have given up their membership. And the thing that, I love his process, is that it starts with listening. And I've talked, extensively on these Facebook Lives about the importance of listening. But what he does is he sits down and gives respect to the person across the table that shares a different belief, and then shares, his perspective. And one thing that he said in the podcast, because I re-listened to the first one last night, is like, when you're actively listening to someone, you're also passively teaching them. And I thought that was a really, insightful thing that he said. So watch the 9-minute video. It talks about his process and how showing another person dignity and respect is the first step to a conversation. And over time, when you build trust and, respect each other's opinions, you might actually, get someone to see your point of view and question where they stand, for the better. So highly, highly recommend the 9-minute video. Watch it, share it, And then the same thing with the podcast. It hasn't aged at all. And follow Daryl Davis. I'll share the links to him. He's on Facebook and Instagram. And another woman that I wanted to mention is Dr. Rudine Bishop. And I listened to a great interview with her last night. But she's a professor at Ohio State on children's literature and speaks, or what she's known for is her mirrors, windows, and sliding doors framework. And let me actually see if I can pull up a quote that I can just read you instead of just speaking to it. Okay, so I'm just going to read this as our sign off for the inspiration. I think it's so good as and I think it beyond books. I think this applies to the content that we read, and especially now as so many people are more open to reading information, learning about anti-racism. I think this applies to even more to this moment in time. So this is a quote from Rudine. Okay, books are sometimes windows, offering views of worlds that may be real or imagined, familiar or strange. These windows are also sliding glass doors, and readers have only to walk through in imagination to become part of whatever world has been created by the author. When lighting conditions are just right, however, a window can also be a mirror. Literature transforms human experience and reflects it back to us. And in that reflection, we can see our own lives and experiences as part of the larger human experience. Reading then becomes a means of self-affirmation, and readers often seek their mirrors in books. So I think it's just really beautiful and something where, as we consume content, whatever it is, that we consume content that not only reflects back to us and reaffirms where we're at, but also that we seek windows into other people's lives and their experiences. And in some cases, walk through and use imagination and empathy to truly understand as much as we can other people's experiences. So thank you for joining me today. As always, do like this page if you haven't already and signed up for our monthly newsletter that's coming out, I think, in 2 weeks. And I look forward to seeing you next Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. East Coast time. Okay, thank you.